Matt George is with us,
Locked
On Kings, ABC 10. He alerted us to some Buddy Hield, Rick Carlisle, end of Pacers 10-year stuff, and I think Kenny may have found it.
Maybe. The only real quote that I'm seeing right now is Buddy was talking about his time leaving Indiana and being with Philly now, and he says, quote, "You want to go excuse me, got choked up talking about Buddy.
Oh, man. Buddy.
You want to go to a team that wants you. You don't want to go to a team where you're a piece and it's like, we're going to try this out. Other teams are trapping Joel Embiid, so you have a three-point shooter to keep the guy honest. I know the reason why I was traded here."
Well, I'm glad Buddy is self-aware that the Indiana Pacers didn't want him and the Kings threw him into the deal just to get him gone with Tyrese. So I'm glad he's aware of that because nobody else is.
At least he wasn't standing in the corner in Indiana like he was.
But he played really well the other day.
I mean, he only played with
He did.
He only played with the best point guard in the league that tried to get him the ball at all opportunities.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah,
him
too.
Oh. Yeah, well, who you talking about? Who you talking about?
I was talking about De'Aaron Fox.
Okay, just checking.
Hey, De'Aaron Fox, the most career assists De'Aaron Fox has with the Buddy.
Is that a shoot? Really?
No, that's a real thing. De'Aaron did a interview with I don't remember what it was, where they asked him like rapid fire questions about his career, and he had to see if he got them right. And one of the questions was, "Who do you have your most assists in your career?" And he said Buddy Hield, and he was right.
Oh wow! All right.
We got to change that though.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Real quick. Don't worry about it. Let's just keep moving because I think I found a different quote, but it's a little long.
Is it salacious? Is it?
Nah, he just basically talks about he knew the Pacers didn't want him when they didn't re-sign him.
And that's a good sign.
And he's like, I had to come in here and be professional, but we all know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good sign when they tell you, no, we're not going to keep you around longer than we have to.
That boy, Buddy, sharp.
What are you complaining about, though? Like, he's on a title contender where he has the green light to shoot as much as he possibly wants.
Well, he does have that.
Like, he's in a good spot. That's a great team. For the Kings were trying to get him to Philly for a while.
So to be fair, is he complaining or is he answering the question?
I don't know.
Somebody was doing an interview. They asked him a question, probably about the end of your time in Indiana, and he answered honestly. He didn't say this on IG Live, unprompted.
Like his Sacramento comments? Like his unprompted comments about what Sacramento can do? Okay, how about we stop talking about Buddy Hield for the foreseeable future and talk about the Sacramento Kings?
Can we go back to the WWE video game first?
No, because you guys, you're talking about CPUs and graphic cards, and
they got casket matches now. They got ambulance matches now. Come on, I can't wait.
They have a Buried Alive match?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, that might be the I might go buy a $600 gaming console now so I could bury virtual Matt George alive.
You're gonna need more than $600.
Jesus, really?
Gaming PCs. You got it.
How much are those things?
My rig's about three grand.
Come on now.
All right, dude.
Come on.
Well, then I'm just out, man.
My son's not going to college, but I got
Get you a PS5 and call it a day.
No, that thing's trash. That's a little.
Oh, it works just fine.
No, it's a lunchbox.
I enjoy it.
No, it's a lunchbox.
There's a lot going on right here. I just want to talk about De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. I just want to talk about the bench having 50 points last night. What stood out to you the most in the Kings' victory against the Lakers last night, Matt?
I felt like in so many ways that game was a representation of the roller coaster of a season of ups and downs, right? The Kings get off to this terribly lethargic start where, you talk so much, D'Lo, on this show about how self-aware this team is. They're aware of their circumstances. They're aware of their pitfalls. They're also aware of the standings and how important that game was, not just for Sacramento, but for Los Angeles in particular. The Kings had to play defense in the standings last night, because if the Lakers win that game, they're biting at the heels of the Kings, and suddenly they insert their conversation themselves into the actually a top 6 seed making the playoffs outright conversation. So that's one more team you have to contend with there. And the Kings come out flat. All their shots are short, playing lazy defensively, turning the ball over again. Like, it just was one of those, oh God, here we go. The Kings just aren't showing up and aren't aware of the moment type start. And then they dig themselves into a hole and wake up, which is something they have done so many times this season, is whether it's late in the game or they fall behind early and they have to play catch up. But it's like instead of being in attack mode, they switch into survival mode. And survival mode is when they start to like step up and play. Then they explode in that second quarter, shoot 80% from 3-point range, miss only 5 shots the entire quarter, put up 44 points. So you started down, now you're climbing back up. And then the lead gets to 22, the exact same lead as the Chicago game. And then LeBron starts waking up. And LeBron by himself gets it down to 12. And it's still late third quarter. And we're all thinking, oh, God, here we go. There's so much time left. The Lakers have momentum. LeBron is alive. Like, the Kings are going to be put to the test on back-to-back games about can they secure a lead. Thankfully, De'Aaron Fox and company were able to slam the door shut. So to me, it was just a roller coaster that represents the kind of ups and downs, highs and lows of the season. And I appreciate that the Kings did get an opportunity to correct a mistake from the game before, and they were able to do so. But once again, they did it on the road. Can they do it at home? Because for some reason, they've been more successful outside of the Golden One Center than inside it.
Well, that's not true. They've got a better home record than they do road record.
They play statistically better defense. They play with better energy. They've maintained leads and had, I think, more quality wins on the road this season than they've had at home. They do have a better home record, but the majority of their bad losses and blown leads have been at home. Granted, the Phoenix one was bad. The Milwaukee one was bad as well. At least those were to 2 playoff caliber teams. The losses that are to the bad teams, almost all of them are at home.
Well, and yeah, very true. And it's looked at worse because it's at home, right? So if you would have lost to Charlotte in Charlotte, you'd be like, man, you should have beat them, but you kind of brush it off a little bit, saying it was on the road. At home, seems there's no justification for that, right? So I look at that team and how they played last night, and I see a team and they've got everything that they need to make the run that they need to make to get into the playoffs right now. And a lot of the times, we're talking about, what they don't have, what they need, all this other stuff. I think they got it all. I talked about it earlier with Damian. I think they got one of the top trios in the league. When you talk about Fox, Sabonis, and Monk, you've got a group that can go for 85, 90 points anytime. And really the thing with them is the consistency, obviously. But now's the time for them to forget about all that, right? What you have in front of you is all that matters. You think this group is up to the task?
Yes, I think so. I think it's going to be like you guys have also talked a lot about like this team is who they are, right? That was one of your shows earlier this week. I think it was Monday after the Chicago, whatever. I get all my days mixed up, but after your guys' first show after the Chicago game, a major theme of your guys' show was this is who this team is, right? And who this team is they're going to be inconsistent. They're extremely top heavy and uber reliant on their top 3, arguably top 4, if you want to insert Keegan Murray in there too. And everybody else is just kind of a question mark. Maybe you might be able to make it 5 and insert Harrison Barnes, but we know he's feast or famine at so many times. Everybody else on this roster, like I've talked about with Mike Brown, and he's talked before games. He answered one of my questions before a home game not too long ago, where I asked him about like the end of the rotation, like that 8th, 9th, 10th guy, and he's basically said nobody has separated themselves from the pack. Like, to me, that speaks volumes, and what speaks even louder is his inconsistent rotations and him at times looking like he's just throwing guys out there and seeing who's going to stick. To me, Mike's, whether you agree or disagree with how Mike has handled himself, and he's certainly made some mistakes, I think, rotationally and with building this team this year and how he's trying to play or run this team this year. I think everything Mike has done has sent the clearest message possible to Monty McNair in the front office. Mike will make moves that might as well, in my mind, be turning and finding Monty in the crowd and just putting his hands up and going, what do you want me to do here? This is what I got. So I think at the very top, the Kings absolutely do have the group to make the playoffs and make noise in the playoffs. They're going to be super reliant on superstar Fox, and Fox was fantastic during that Golden State Warriors series before he got hurt. Domantas Sabonis hopefully can be that triple-double threat on a nightly basis, not just for the remainder of the season, but in the postseason. Last night was playoff Malik Monk, who's capable of going off and scoring for you. And you have this Keegan Murray presence, who hopefully he can hit some shots and be that perimeter threat that he is. But he's your go-to defender that nightly is not just guarding the best player on the opposing team, but he's making good defensive plays on a nightly basis. So even if Keegan's not scoring, he's making an impact. The rest of this roster, you're going to see what you get on a nightly basis. You might have nights last night where Keon and Davion are balling out and you're like, wow, I'm getting a lot of production from 4 guards. Or you might have nights where it's literally going to take 90 points from those big 3 for the Kings to have a chance.
Man, there's a lot there. 21 games with Malik Monk having 20 plus points this year. You mentioned, Matt, Keegan Murray. I thought Keegan was really good last night.
He was.
Not what you'd hope for offensively, but it was kind of whether the shots weren't there for him or he wasn't looking for him. I felt like Keegan Murray absolutely made an impact on last night's game, and that's where the kind of the plus, what Kenny and I were talking about earlier, when you get those, over your averages performances from Davion or Trey or Malik or insert, Kings player here name, it takes the pressure off of Keegan Murray, who's doing a lot on the defensive end. He was blocking shots. He was talking to officials last night. You feel like sometimes you see Keegan Murray do some things and it's like, yeah, even here 60 something games into a second, he's starting to find himself a little bit. He's starting to find his way around the court in situations that maybe he hasn't been before. Now that he's such a stronghold defender, he's got to talk to officials more. I thought he was great last night.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing Keegan develop into is we still want to see more of him on the offensive end and showing that he can create his own shot. And he's given us glimpses at times, but not consistently enough, which is one of the main things we were hoping for from Keegan coming into this year. Of course, he's kind of leapfrogged that with his development on the defensive end of the floor. But ultimately, what we can say about Keegan Murray, which again, we're talking about a second-year player. He is a everyday starter in this league, and he is an everyday impactful player. We're saying that about a second-year guy. So I understand wanting more offense from Keegan. The Kings are going to need more offense from Keegan at times just to make the playoffs, not just in the postseason itself. But Mike Brown can rely on a second-year player, his starting 3-4, depending upon how you want to match him up with Harrison Barnes. You can rely on and count on getting a solid defensive impact and smart basketball player on a nightly basis. When you get the shot making, it's a massive added bonus because Keegan is capable of going off for 47 points that he did earlier on this season, which it looked like De'Aaron Fox had that in the back of his mind at the end of last night's game. De'Aaron was not just going for that career high last night. De'Aaron was trying to break Keegan's record.
I secretly love how agitated he is that he can't get there.
Malik too. It's so great. He
looks so annoyed, like I can't get past 44.
But I agree with you, D-Lo. I think Keegan played very, very. I mean, you're asking a second-year player to match up with LeBron James and make life as difficult as possible for King James, and he did the job. Like as best as you can do the job.
Yeah,
he did the job.
Yeah. Look, Keegan is going to be a huge part of this run. I'm excited for the win last night. That was a big time win last night. I said all day. Everybody I think that talked said all day yesterday, it's a big game. This is a big game. And they went out, even though they started off extremely slow, they answered, bounced back, and they beat the hell out of the Lakers last night. Matt, of these teams that are competing for the final spot, because I feel like New Orleans is kind of in there. I think the Kings are the best team left. I know they're inconsistent, all this other stuff. I think they're better than the Lakers. I think they're better than the Warriors. I think they're better than the Mavs. I think they're better than the Suns. And they have the capability to, if they reach their ceiling, I think they should get that 6th spot.
I think the team that they're trying to catch right now is fitting. I think the only team that can challenge Sacramento for being the best of that group is Phoenix. And unfortunately, Phoenix is dealing with the injury issues that they're dealing with right now. And they're also answering with their schedule a little bit. Although the Sacramento Kings didn't get a second mini All-Star break after playing like 1 or 2 games coming back. So everything evens itself out, right? No one's going to feel sorry for the Suns that they put together a roster of guys that has superstar talent at the top, but has question marks injury-wise. And the Suns, just like the Clippers in many ways, know that the biggest enemy of themselves is injuries and is health. So the Kings are not going to feel bad about taking advantage of that. I think in a straight-up game between the Kings and the Suns, I think we've seen repeatedly that the Kings have been the better team, and they've just blown it a couple of times. But the Kings have outplayed the Suns basically every single time that they've played. The Kings have dominated the Lakers this season every time that they've played. Granted, the first game went into overtime, but De'Aaron Fox after he hurt himself in that game. That's where he had that initial injury. He came back, finished that game, and was superstar Fox in the fourth quarter. We don't even need to talk about how Domantas Sabonis owns Anthony Davis. Everybody in the league should be aware of it, even if they're not going to talk about it.
Like, yeah, we can still talk about it.
No, we can. We absolutely can. But like, Kings own the Lakers. The Warriors are scary in the sense that they match up very, very well with the Kings. Not that they have an advantage, but that both these teams are so similar and so even that I feel like it's a coin flip almost every single time these teams play. I think the Kings have the better roster, the more sustainable roster, but every time the Kings and Warriors play, it is to me, a 50-50 chance of who's going to win that game. That's why I want to avoid that scenario in the play-in altogether. But for the most part, Kenny, I agree with you. I think the Kings are the best team. I think the Kings are, when we're all said and done, whether it's 5th or 6th, the Kings and Pelicans deserve to have those secured spots and let basically the rest of the Pacific Division battle it out for who's going to make that 7 and 8th.
Matt, if you were coach Matt George and you've seen the way Keon Ellis has played lately, would you try to find minutes for him? And if you would, how?
Yes, absolutely. I think Keon Ellis should be a staple of the rotation for the remainder of this season and going into the playoffs. I think he's earned that. I don't think it is a coincidence that the game shifts when Keon steps in. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Kings are 4-0 in games without De'Aaron Fox that Keon Ellis has started. Now, you have to be transparent with what that means. It's not that Keon Ellis is starting for the Kings and replacing Fox's 27 points. Last night, Keon had like 5 points, a handful of rebounds, a couple steals. So Keon wasn't offensively sparking that comeback. In many ways, Davion Mitchell was. Like, Davion went 4 for 4 from 3, 12 points in that first half. And Davion made me eat my words last night because I was ready to take Davion out and have the Kings do a three-guard rotation for the rest of the night. I was ready to see Fox, Monk, and Keon with Davion's first stint, because Davion came into the game, and in that first stint, he did not play well. He played terrible defense, and as usual, he wasn't really giving you too much on the offensive end. He made me eat my words. He was phenomenal in that first half. The Kings do not win that basketball game without Davion Mitchell last night. I would have liked to have seen it carry over into the second half a little bit, but it doesn't matter. You got 12 points and 4 or 4 from 3 from Davion. You should be winning that game. We asked Mike Brown. It wasn't me who asked it. I can't remember who it was at practice before the Laker game. What is the thought process choosing between Keon and Davion? And Mike basically said, both guys are playing well right now. I give the edge to Davion over Keon when both guys are playing well because of Davion's experience. I understand that. But to me, the eye test is showing you, the numbers are showing you, the results are showing you that Keon Ellis makes winning plays with this Kings team. He comes in and makes an impact that this team needs, that is in the background a little bit. You can put Keon out there with Monk. You can put Keon out there with Fox. You can put Keon out there with Sabonis. It does not matter. Defensively, he's going to make the right plays. And offensively, he has a pulse. He's there. He makes a presence. And he's also capable of distributing a little bit, like moving the basketball as well. So to me, Keon needs to be the guy in the rotation. Knowing Mike, though, because Davion is playing well, Mike is not going to give Keon that spot over Davion at this point in time. Where those minutes come from, it's Kevin Huerter, right? If Kevin Huerter is going to continue to be the target right out of the gate, like he's been literally every single game over the last week and a half, the first or second play of the game for the opposing team is going right at Kevin. It's happening every single night now. The Kings are not a good defensive team, but they have a weakest link. And I love Kevin because he works his ass off to try and improve on that end of the floor, but he is just not capable of doing the job at the level that Mike is expecting and the Kings are needing. I would be shocked. Not that I want him gone. I would be shocked if Kevin Huerter is a member of the Sacramento Kings starting next season. I think he's gone this offseason. I think the writing's on the wall with that. And if Kevin continues to be a target defensively and offensively is struggling to give you consistency from the perimeter, I think it's Keon and Davion time, and whoever's the better of the two gets the bulk of the minutes on that given night.
I think we've been a little too hard on Kevin Huerter based off of last night. There wasn't an issue with him against Chicago. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think
the criticisms of I'll speak for myself. I don't think the criticisms of Kevin Huerter are just based off last night.
Well, clearly, and not alone either, because Mike sees the same thing. But at the same time, well, we both agree, like, you need him to win.
Yeah,
you need him to be a winning team.
Yep,
I agree.
And I think the way that you go about it, maybe give him a little bit more of a leash, or don't be so quick to never go back to him or something like that. I don't know what the answer is, but
well, see that right there, what you just said. I don't know what the answer is. That could be the uncomfortable truth with this team. There might not be one. It might be nights where Huerter is out there. He's getting picked on defense, but he hit 3 threes in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. Or you have the Lakers doing whatever they do, or you have the opposing team doing whatever they do, and that's when you turn to Keon and Davion. The uncomfortableness might be there's not a universal answer to this.
Which what we talked about earlier. You got to play it by ear, and you got to play a little bit more by feel as well when you play it by ear. And that's what he did last night, and it worked. He went with Keon. He thought Keon would give them a spark that they needed to get back into that game, and he was 100% correct. But I just that doesn't mean that's how it's going to be tonight.
Sure.
You got to be willing to be flexible and have another feel for the game.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think back to even the Chicago Bulls game. Like, Kobe White didn't take a shot and didn't score at all in the first quarter of that game. You know who was doing all the scoring was Ayo Dosunmu, who Kevin Huerter was guarding. Like, Ayo came out of the gate and he was the guy making the offensive impact. He finished in that game. I'm trying to get it right in front of me. He finished that game with 20 points. I would argue close to 10 of them, half of them were in the first quarter alone. He was attacking Kevin right out of the gate. The Lakers did the same thing yesterday. I'm pretty sure the Timberwolves a couple of games before did that. And don't be surprised tonight, especially without Victor Wembanyama, if Kevin Huerter starts, which I believe he should, because like you're saying, Kenny, the Kings need Kevin Huerter to be the best version of themselves. I fully agree with that. But watch, I don't know who he's going to be guarding tonight, but whoever he is guarding, the Spurs are going to try to isolate him. Every team in the league has picked up on it and is aware of it. And Kevin's aware of it
a couple of weeks ago.
That's
San Antonio.
That's the worst part. Kevin's aware of it too. And it's not that he's just accepting I don't play defense like a guy we talked about earlier. Like I'm talking about Buddy Hield. Like Kevin's working. He's trying. He's putting in the work. He's just there's no other way to put it in my opinion of just he's not capable of doing what the Kings need. And he is continuously being targeted. And those breakdowns are leading to overall defensive breakdowns for Sacramento. And it's starting on the perimeter with how Kevin is being targeted. I truly wish, because on paper, offensively, I think Kevin Huerter is a perfect type of shooting guard to have with this Kings roster. He's absolutely perfect offensively. But Mike has made it very, very clear that the Kings aren't interested in being the great offensive team that makes it to the playoffs and flames out in the first or second round every single year. He doesn't want to be that. He has no interest in being that. To me, that is not directly saying Kevin Huerter is that type of player, but to me, that is the type of Kevin Huerter game in Sacramento, is just trying to outscore you by getting hot at the perimeter. Mike is saying we got to win it on the defensive end, and repeatedly, he's the one being targeted on defense. I just think his days in Sacramento are numbered because it's a mutual parting of ways. It's just not working.
Well, he's not going anywhere this year.
No, that's
so
true.
They got to figure out a way to make this work over the course of the next 20-something games, and it's got to start tonight. And I think the point Kenny made is the most important one. It's there's no universal, like it's Mike's got to be, one of the best games we saw last night wasn't from De'Aaron or Domas. I think it was from Mike Brown. And Mike is going to have more games like that than not, because I was really critical of him following the Chicago game. I think there's a couple of things he could have done to slow things down, get his guys back in, back focused, back ready to sustain this run and respond, just like they did last night on the multiple runs that the Lakers made, both at the beginning of the game when that run had Kings fans defeated, and then that run that you were talking about with LeBron James that came out of the timeout with De'Aaron to the basket. That's a credit to Mike Brown. He's got to be that sharp again tonight. And then he's got to be that sharp again on Sunday. Like we talk about players having up and down games. Mike can't have any up and down games. I thought Mike was brilliant last night, and that's got to continue.
Yeah, going back to the Kevin Huerter thing really, really quickly, I will say I also don't think Mike has handled the Kevin Huerter situation correctly this season. I don't think he has. I think Mike is largely responsible for the Kings losing the offensive punch that Kevin Huerter was last season. I think Kevin Huerter got into his head a lot, and I think Mike was partially responsible for that with the demands and expectations, and not necessarily putting Kevin in the position to be himself and succeed at that level. Certainly not as much as last season. So Mike is certainly not to blame, Mike is certainly not blameless in the Kevin Huerter situation. That being said, I agree with you completely. I thought Mike made the right decisions last night. It helps. It makes you look a lot smarter as a coach when you're getting the bench impact that the Kings got last. When you get 50 points from your bench, regardless of who you're throwing in there, you look like a genius. And again, the Kings got 50 points from their bench without Davion scoring in the second half. He was the second leading scorer off that bench. He didn't score in the second half. And I think Keon and maybe Alex Len each had a bucket or two in the second half. That was it. Like, it was all basically Malik Monk, and the Kings still had 50 bench points. So Mike looks like a genius last night, rightfully so, because his bench gave him that impact and got them back into that game. I also think what Mike did really, really well last night is he had his starters come back in to start the second half, but he had a short leash with them. Harrison, Kevin, we're giving you another opportunity here, but if it starts unraveling, I'm not letting it get out of control like it did twice against Chicago. It starts unraveling. Kevin, sit down. Harrison, sit down. We're going back to the guys that got us here, that were playing well. I think the Sacramento Kings, if they had the option to pass on overtime last night and keep playing, they would have chosen that option and beaten the Lakers by 50. It was just, they were rolling. And Kevin and Harrison weren't necessarily a part of that last night. But Mike has had games where he has a short leash with some guys and way too long a leash with other guys. I just think he needs to find the middle ground and be consistent outside of your top guys. Even if Malik is doing his Malik chaotic stuff, like ride with Malik, ride with Fox, ride with Sabonis, ride with Keegan. Everybody else, be consistent with what you expect out of them. And if they're not performing, don't be afraid to use the hook quick, but also don't have too quick of a hook that you can't let them ease into the game. Like, I don't want to see a scenario where Kevin Huerter gets targeted the first two possessions of the game tonight. Mike calls a quick timeout a minute into the game and pulls Kevin out. At that point, you're not even giving him an opportunity to settle into the game. So there's a balance between a quick hook and not letting it go too long. And Mike's made the mistake on both sides at times. I think he typically goes too long with guys than he has a quick hook. Finding that balance is going to be essential in this playoff race, I believe.
How confident are you in this team and making the playoffs? That's really what we're talking about here, making the playoffs. I've talked about it a lot. I mean, I still think they're a top 6 team. I think they're going to make it. How do you feel about this team right now, especially after a win like last night?
I'm glad you asked that, Kenny, because I was listening to your conversation with Will Z yesterday while I was driving into the studio. And it dawned on me while I was listening, like, whether it is still the hangover from the vibes of last season, or just the Kings optimism that I naturally feel like I have, or whatever it was, I have not truly allowed myself to consider the Kings being a play-in team. That might be my own mistake, my own fault, but I've always had the confidence that the Kings were going to be a top 6 seed, and that hasn't wavered. Like, I think the Kings are our top 6 team in the Western Conference. I just think they are. I think, and what's in their way from becoming that is really themselves, right? And I believe more often than not that the top of this roster is going to be able to overcome the mistakes that they make. Like, we know who this team is. the negative sides of things jump off the page to us a little bit more here in Sacramento because we're watching them on a nightly basis. But this team is also really, really good, really dangerous, and capable of exploding at any given time. And they've given Mike Brown those flashes in important games and big games of the capability on the defensive end of the floor to lock in, play well, and win. So I truly believe, and I have not wavered from this. The play-in is absolutely a threat that I am terrified of from the Kings' perspective, but I've never felt that the Kings would end up there. I believe this is a top 6 seed, and I think before the season is over, they will be putting a little pressure on 5, but I think they end up in 6.
I'm talking about putting pressure on 5. Let's talk about De'Aaron Fox for a minute. There were moments last night where it felt like, and he has these a lot, and I think it was so glaring for me because LeBron James was doing it for the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James going to the basket. It's been like this for 20 years now. No one can stop him.
Nope.
Like you just look like if he wanted to do that, if he was physically capable of doing that, every play he could do it, and there's nothing anyone could do about it. I felt the exact same way about De'Aaron Fox last night. When he gets downhill and he makes the decision to go to the basket, no one can stop him except the officials. Make the determination of whether they're going to blow the whistle on a foul call or not. De'Aaron was brilliant in attacking the basket last night. And it started to make me wonder, is he one of the most dangerous offensive? It started to make me wonder, could he be one of the most dangerous offensive players in the entire league?
And D'Lo, let me add a little bit of context to last night too. He's doing that with Anthony Davis standing in the paint waiting for him. Like, Anthony Davis was a complete non-factor last night. A lot of that had to do with Domantas Sabonis completely outplaying him. But Anthony Davis is a rim protector. Anthony Davis changed his shots at the rim. De'Aaron was going right at Anthony Davis without fear, and Davis couldn't do a thing to stop him. I love that what we've seen from De'Aaron Fox really since the All-Star break, when he's maybe gotten healthier, gotten kind of revamped, got that little bit of a break, he's getting downhill again. I love how De'Aaron has grown as a three-point shooter. He is a constant three-point threat, and that's still a part of his game, and that's made him virtually unguardable. But at times this season, and I felt after he got his first injury and when he was in the dog days of the season and getting banged up every time he attacked the basket, I felt that De'Aaron was kind of going, yeah, I'm going to take threes tonight. I ain't going in there. Like, I ain't doing this. I got 45 games left to play. I'm not doing it. I'm not feeling 100%. I'm not going in there amongst those guys. Recently, and especially last night, De'Aaron said, yeah, I don't care that Anthony Davis is in there. Stop me. Somebody stop me. Try. And if you go back and watch, because I went back and watched, he was getting to that mid-range floater, that mid-range jumper that he loves, but also getting to the rim. 3 or 4 Lakers are collapsing on him almost every single time. And he's still scoring and shooting over the top of them. So I agree with you. When De'Aaron wants to, he can be unstoppable. Now, he also has to stay healthy too, which is a big part of it. And I think people forget because of how the playoff series ended, but De'Aaron had one of the best statistical scoring offensive playoff debuts in NBA history. Like, he came out of the gate in game 1, first ever playoff game at home against the defending champs, and said, yeah, this is light work for me. And until he got hurt, he was dominating that series. So De'Aaron is that guy. And he's shown that early on this season when he was an MVP candidate, dropping felt like 40 a night. And then games like last night, where even if the Kings were starting slow, he was bringing it from the beginning. He had 9 points in the first quarter. I think 9 points in the second quarter. Like, he was bringing it all game long. It wasn't just fourth quarter Fox, who fans have at times complained that he's coasting until the fourth quarter starts. No, it was the same De'Aaron attack, all 4 quarters. You talk about leading by example. Fox did it in that sense. His starters weren't necessarily following him. His bench did. And then you have Malik too, who, one of my favorite lines from Malik this season is, they can't stop both of us. Where Fox and Malik on the floor at the same time can both do close to the same things. Malik can't do it as well as Fox can. But if there is anybody in this league that is as close to matching the similar kind of offensive impact and production of De'Aaron Fox, it's Malik Monk. And both those guys can be on the floor at the same time. So pick your poison in that sense. You're worried about De'Aaron, okay, Malik's going to go off on you. So I agree with you completely. I thought Fox was sensational last night.
I want to see it again.
Yeah,
I want to see it again today, man. Get this one
today. That's
what we're looking for.
That's the thing, though, right? That's the whole. Right now, at this exact minute, the Kings are everything we said they were Tuesday. You got the big win against Minnesota. You have the letdown against Chicago. You have the big win against Los Angeles. Okay, now let's change. Let's change. Kenny says you're not a 500 team. Well, don't be a 500 team this week. Go 2-0 in the last 2 games. Go 1-0 today. Shout out Russell Wilson. Go 1-0 today. Let's ride.
And they technically can be a 500 team this week. Oh, well, Sunday's a new week. So, no, they can't be a 500 team, can they? Or no, they only got 5 games this week.
Well, just don't be a 500 team right now then. How about that? Just don't be a 500 team right now. Just go get the dub and go subscribe. You're going to the game, right? Like I was surprised you're at the office. I was surprised you weren't at the office.
As soon as we sign off, I'm hopping in the car and heading down.
All right, we're going to let you go right now. Make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Kings podcast. And, of course, you can check out Matt's great work over on ABC